All right. So the first question that I have for you is if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and the work that you do as an organizer.
So I am a lifelong trade unionist. Both of my parents were in unions, so that's kind of how, I just grew up in it. And I ended up doing organizing, just kind of getting involved with my own unions first. I was a member of QB 951 here on campus, and the BCGU, and so I served on some occupational health and safety committees, and just kind of went from there and realized you can actually work and do that as a job, which is really cool. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
And the work you do now as an organizer. Yeah.
So when I was doing external labor organizing, a lot of it was really just talking to people, meeting workers on their breaks or after work, and almost like a cold calling approach of hi, you don't know me, but have you ever heard of a labor union? And so it's really exciting to get that educational piece and to teach people who didn't grow up in circumstances like me, what a union is and what the benefits are. And just kind of helping guide them through the application process, and getting to see some of the aftermath of what bargaining looks like and things like that. So there's a lot to it, but it's definitely a very unique job in that way.
That's awesome. And can you think back to a peak moment or experience that you've had so far in your labor organizing journey, and maybe touch on why that mattered to you?
Yeah, the very first drive that I was ever a part of when I started working as a staff organizer was this group of liquor store workers, who you might know them from your class, but they reached out to the union. It was very organic and grassroots. They wanted it, and in a lot of sectors that can be not the case. There's a lot of workers, particularly in more precarious situations where maybe they're just not exposed to, there's no other unions around on their job site or things like that, but these workers really wanted it, and they did all of the organizing and card signing themselves. It was so organic, and that made it really exciting to be a part of in a small way, and just to see it all happen was really cool.
Yeah, that's great. And then on the flip side, is there a moment that you can recall where you've faced adversity or pushback from either maybe peers or an organization in trying to?
Definitely the employer you're always going to face adversity from. I was really fortunate in that there were no big boss fights that I experienced when I was doing external organizing, but I think anywhere in the labor movement, right now with the genocide in Palestine, for example, unions are so involved in politics, and even dealing with other unions that have differing positions on things, and in the movement work and labor councils and things like that, is definitely a challenge, but that's in my view what the struggle is for. You organize workers to do other things and do political things, so there's definitely a lot of that right now.
Right, fair enough. And is there anything you wish you had known before you first got involved in the labor movement?
I guess I wish that I had known there were jobs in that work. I always kind of considered myself an activist, and I knew if I was in a union I wanted to be an active member, but the roles that you could get being a staff rep or a bargaining agent, it wasn't something that I was exposed to at all. And so I was a sociology student, and I was looking at law and grad programs, and I think if I had known that you can do movement work and be paid to do it, that would have changed. I would have been doing it 10 years ago. So
Right. And do you see yourself continuing down that path?
Yeah. It just feels right. It just feels like it's where it's good to. I think it's important to have an element in your work if you can. I'm very fortunate where you are intrinsically motivated, and labor is that for me for sure.
That's awesome. Is there any book or film that's had a big impact on how you think about the labor movement?
I was so nervous for this question. Ants, the animated movie, was definitely
Oh.
one when I was a kid that got me thinking about labor.
Oh, that's a
But
great one.
yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
But The Irishman is like one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's a very different perspective. It's not about the workers organizing, but about the history of labor during the 70s, which was such a, so much union density and so much power, and some of the things obviously that can go wrong with that. But yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. And what, if anything, do you wish older members of the labor movement understood about the new generation of organizers?
I think that because union density has fallen a little bit, I don't know if the older generation, where there was more density and there was more labor knowledge, really see how much young people are ready to organize and how politically aware they are and class conscious they are. And so I guess just making space for them and letting them, be vocal in those things, because some of the workers that I've met that are, freshly 19 or younger, they fully get it, and they understand the potential of organized labor.
Yeah, and going off of that, is there any advice you would give other young people who are looking to unionize their workplace maybe, or just get involved in the labor movement?
I guess I would just say don't be afraid to get in there and be loud and disruptive. A lot of the spaces that I go into, I'm the only person under 30 or 40 in the room sometimes, and they appreciate that. Like, they want to see more young people involved. I look at like the Starbucks campaign in the States and how much that's exploded. That's all driven by youth, and so I think you just have to get in there and make it happen, and organizing your workplace is the best place to start, for sure.
That's great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
No
That's so
problem.